Bible says that a day is with the Lord as 1,000 years.
Yes.
So could these days of creation be actually 1,000 years each?
Well,
One day.
isn't that a marvelous question? Thanks for opening up the rest of my talk. Yes, precisely in this way, that the 7 days become the pattern then. They are values of, they are immortal values, and they become the pattern then to resolve the mortal so-called values, what we call the second record of creation is resolved by the same pattern, by the pattern of the days of creation. And actually that second record is a true record, is a true record of false creation. It's a true record of what is not true creation, but false creation. And we'll see the love in that as we go on over the next hours. But you have with that second record like a microcosm view of what every individual works out under the impact of the Word of God. And then you see that actually that microcosm view, if every individual works that out, then also the collective works it out and the universal work it out. And that working out goes across time, is going across time, and can be seen as taking place through the same pattern of 7,000-year periods. And so we now draw to the close in a time-wise sense. Today, at this point in time, we draw to the close of the 6,000-year period of Christian history. And actually, I think have already moved into the 7,000-year period. That would be the movement from truth to love. So we are moving into the 7,000-year period of Christian history, where the whole mortal proposition will be resolved individually, collectively, and universally, completely. And so that is one level of looking at those 1,000-year periods. We could also see that those 1,000-year periods, because as an individual we go through those 7, working out the mortal concept, that those 1,000-year periods are not 1,000 years long for us, or because we don't live in this body for 7,000 years. They are states and stages of consciousness. So the 1,000-year periods are states and stages of consciousness within our own evolution of spiritual development. Okay? Thank you.
1,000 then is a symbol for divinity, same as 7 is a symbol?
Well, we start with a day, and we give, I think it's a way of indicating that those days just keep on going on, that the cycle of those 7 days keeps repeating and repeating and repeating itself. And 1,000 years would symbolize the fullness of the demonstration of the days of creation from a certain standpoint, say from the standpoint of mind. When you have 7,000 year periods, it's a symbol for the fullness of the demonstration of the 7 days of creation, of the Word of God working in human consciousness. Something like that. That was an excellent question too. Yeah.
You're not taking it literally, like 4,000 BC is the beginning of
Well,
creation?
that's it. It also is so at that level, yes. At a level of chronological time, or of history, historical time.
Science level.
Yes. Yes. Any reference to 7,000 year periods would be at the Christian Science level. Mm-hmm. All right. So.
I sense maybe that people are talking about Darwin proving that the Earth is many millions of years old.
Oh.
That's another subject.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Wonderful subject. A subject of, does evolution, they're always finding these new things, and now you even hear them when they present, they say, well, we better not tell the theologians about this, because they'll go into a crisis when they find out that it didn't really happen this way and everything. But when you see that it's a deep structure that the Bible presents, when you understand that the categories of being, nothing, absolutely nothing contradicts it. You just see everything, even evolution. My gosh, evolution, the concept of evolution is, well, it's our life. We're continually evolving, that it's an evolution of consciousness. At a material, physical plane or level, it looked like that evolving over millions or billions of years, whatever, of physical material forms. What was that all about? It's just an impact. It was just the first faint appearing of the Christ idea in that form.
So 2000 AD will be the beginning of the 7,000 year period.
Yes, actually, there's some question about whether it would be 2000 AD or 2001 AD.
Well, technically 2001.
2001, yeah. But I think generally the world accepts 2000, yeah.
Yeah, most people, actually that's the last year of the 20th century.
Yeah.
2001 is the beginning of the millennium.
Yes,
Because
yes.
there's no year zero, so it goes from 1 BC to 1 AD.
That's
the
right.
reason.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to finish this paragraph, again where she says that the numerals of infinity, called 7 days, can never be reckoned according to the calendar of time, but they make their impact on time. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't reckon them. You can't calculate them according to time, but they make their impact on time.
There's a difference.
Yes. Time is structured, is patterned by them, by the days of creation. These days will appear. Where do they appear? They really appear in consciousness as mortality disappears. And they will reveal eternity, newness of life, in which all sense of error forever disappears, and thought accepts what? What does she say thought accepts? The divine infinite calculus. See? So it's the calculus always working through the 7 days to lift consciousness out of the concept of time and therefore out of the concept of mortality. Time and mortality are closely related. Yeah. All right, I'm going to let you have your lunch break, and I hope you come back. I hope you survived this morning. You all look radiant and beautiful. Thank you. Okay, now we're ready to look at the 7 days of creation and to see in which way they correlate with the 7 synonymous terms for God, and thus give us our first look or our first touch of the first great category of being, the nature of God, and the constituency for our guiding principle, or that guiding principle that is going to guide us through the great problem of being. And so the days of creation are in what we call an order. They are ordered. They are not just appearing willy-nilly, but they have a definite place value. Each of those 7 has a different place value within the order. And the order is the word order. We're looking at the word. The word will always show us how we get the divine definition of anything, how we get the divine statement about any situation, any proposition. It's a divine statement. The word order, the days of creation, give a 7-fold light. They present a 7-fold divine light on any subject, any question. Isn't that marvelous? You can see that actually they are a deep structure and not just a surface structure, but that they are a deep structure that patterns many, many multitudes of surface structures, in that they give to us the light, the information, the clear definition of any subject or question. John Dorley called the days of creation, or referred to them as 7 periods of progressive spiritual thought. That they portray 7 stages of revelation. It's the complete revealing or unfolding of God as He presents Himself as He is in His divine nature. They constitute the primary revelation of God's true nature in an ordered way, he said. An ordered spiritual process of divine thought and revelation. And again, we had seen in the textbook earlier this morning that Mrs. Eddy indicates that those days give us an ascending way. You recall that we said that, in quoting her, the periods of spiritual ascension are the days and seasons of mind's creation. Why does she say mind's creation there? She takes the whole order as mind's creation, really as opposed to or contrasted with any sense or belief of a creation by mortal mind, a mortal mind creation. So those 7 are periods of spiritual ascension. And in regard to those days, again, Mrs. Eddy says, in its genesis, the science of creation is stated in mathematical order, beginning with the lowest form and ascending the scale of being up to man. And that's what we have in that order, an ascending scale of creation up to the 6th day of creation, the creation of man, and finally closing with the 7th day, where being is resting in action, resting in its own perfection of creation. did we say that the word order always brings clarification on a subject? That it is a developing sequence. Whenever Mrs. Eddy wanted to develop a subject in the textbook, she would use the word order. When you begin the textbook at the point of prayer, you would see that the prayer chapter is in 7 subjects. It's in the word order. And each one of those 7 subjects is again in the 7. So that at each point within the whole development of that word, she would again go more deeply, say more deeply into mind, and how can she clarify, how can she develop what mind is by going again through the 7. So we have a kind of a pattern, we could say a pattern across scale, that being just keeps using the same pattern. It has certain patterns and uses them over and over again at every scale of its self-presentation. The word order shows us a creative process here in the days of creation, a creative flow. It's the building up of a subject. It's a constructive activity and has to do with ascending states and stages. Now, we haven't talked about the Christ, or maybe some of you have talked about the Christ over the lunch hour. I heard a lovely discussion going on, but when we come to the Christ order, we would find something completely different, that the Christ order has a different office to fulfill, very different than the word. The Christianity order and the science orders have different offices to fulfill, quite unique from the word. But at this point, we want to take the word and be very, very clear about it, and then we can go on either now or at another time and begin to develop our feel, our spiritual sensitivity, our understanding of each of those 4 orders. Well, you see that the days of creation are written in certain symbols. They use a certain set of symbols to present the nature of God, to present what the true creation of God is, what the true cosmos is, the spiritual cosmos. What is the spiritual creation of God? And those symbols are not metaphysical symbols, but they are natural symbols. And we have to realize that there are many, many types of symbols or classifications of symbols. And that as we rise in our understanding, the symbols change. They become higher, purer, more rarefied, until finally the symbols go out. Why do we have symbols? We have symbols in order to understand reality. These symbols help us to understand reality. And somewhere Mary Baker Eddy says that as we rise, the symbols disappear. So we are always dealing with reality, with the reality of the science of being. But in the translation, in the translatability of the Christ, in the mind of Christ, the Christ knows exactly how to bring to our understanding that which we need in order to understand reality. And so the Christ speaks in many, many different languages. You know, a language is a symbol system, a system of symbols. And so, in a sense, in a way, every consciousness has its own language. Every consciousness is addressed perfectly, exactly, precise language. Isn't that marvelous? Isn't that a love sense? Because of the love of the Christ, the love factor, exactly what we need in terms of our activity within consciousness, the voice, all part of that language. Your experiences are the exact vernacular that you need in order to a point of perfect understanding. So, this thing, and I think that, and how the Christ works, we are then also aware of changing and rising of those symbols that to give way to the new and to the higher, of myth at that time, and of symbols, and of choosing the right symbols to the truth of being. You know, many who critique such things as the Hebrews just took the same symbols that the Egyptians had taken or the Chaldeans had taken. And so what was so special, symbols, actually what the days of creation present, what is called a cosmogonic myth or a creation myth. In what the Hebrews did with these symbols and what any other culture portray with the very same symbols that everyone else had used, reality. No other culture had done that. The nature of God, the nature of being. You know, so often we say, well, if something is a myth, it isn't true. But form is something quite different. A myth portrays a thing that is a deep truth. We can see that actually that's what the days of creation are, with such precision, with such, they give us the law of creation, present us with the law. And so in the first 1,000-year period are the symbols, that what we refer to as the first record of, they're both myths. But they both portray great generic truth, like a general truth that can be used by anyone throughout all time. They have historical nature, but of a general. We said that we have certain symbols in the days of creation, and let's. Where did I put my sheet? To go through generally, let's just go through what the symbols are, shall we? Symbol of light, generic light. Firmament of spirit. That firmament which in the third day it is the dry land, or even in the third day a second symbol, and that is the, and we will begin to metaphysical meaning in a moment. The moon and the stars, not as three separate symbols, but as one unit. Sun, the moon, and the stars. And all right, and then we come to the fifth day. We will see it is the teeming sense of the fish and the fowl. In the sixth day, all the living creatures come forth. animals, and finally man. I see that in the fifth day we have actually the two symbols of the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air. And also in the sixth day we have the living creatures and animals. And a second symbol in the sixth day is man. And in the seventh day is not really a day of creation, but of almost give you the metaphysical sense of the glorification of love, of the creation being finished and complete, and rest. Now let's go back to the first day. And what do we see there? What lies behind those symbols, those natural symbols? Actually, it was John Dorley who, for every day of his life since the teens of this century up until his passing in 1950, every day of his life he went to the days of creation and asked something further about those days of creation. It was John Dorley's work that decoded the days of creation. It was his development that eventually led to the realization that behind those 7 days were the 7 synonymous terms for God. We take that all very naturally right now. We take it rather glibly for granted. Oh, of course, wouldn't you know that? 7 and 7, but he didn't, and he never jumped to conclusions. He never said, well, if I have 7 here and I have 7 there, they must have be the same 7. He didn't do that. He was a true scientist, and so he followed a direct line of research which led him inevitably and irrefutably to the fact that the 7 days of creation were indeed finding their deep structure in the definition for God through the 7 synonymous terms. And so we come in and we have all of this information now, and it's only a matter of quickening within ourselves and awakening within ourselves the beauty of that and the appreciation for that and the sense of what it means that there is a perfect correlation between the first record of creation in the Bible and Mrs. Eddy's final statement of what God is in the Christian Science textbook. So if we look at that first day of creation, we see it is a day of "and God said." And God said. Every day is a day of "and God said" through the 7 days. You can hear it's the Word of God, right? It's the declaration of God. It is the self-revelation of God. Whenever you have a rendering "and God said," let there be. And we are going to find out that these are 7 days, are 7 standpoints or stages of consciousness which have a "let there be" behind them. I wasn't going to bring this in until later, but you can't help but hear it as we go through, that "let there be" is there. And at the same time, you have coming into each day "and there was," a kind of "and there was" sense, a "let there be," and there was, and it was good, it was finished. So there's a kind of a threefold stamp on every day, a threefold pattern on each of those 7 days. Would you know? I know that some of us do know, but would you know, would you be able to feel what that threefold stamp is? If I say, would you know what it is, you know that I want you to speak to me in categories. Speak to me in capitalized terms. What is it that says, let there be? Let there be something new. It's an impelling sense in every day. An impelling sense. It's not a static sense, but each day has a terrific impulsion in it to be what it is, to come forth. And that's life that is impelling. Life impels every day, each one of those 7 days. I know you knew it, Dorothy, but I wanted to...
I know she knew it too, but it just wasn't coming to her. Because she was talking about on the break of is, and that is isness, that coming into existence, that, and she was identifying that as life. So, you know.
Sort of a calling into existence that which is. You hear levels? Calling into existence, into being that which is. That's what the impulsion of life does. When I ask you, what is that? Don't worry if you can't answer, because the blessing, the helpful aspect of that is that you immediately go within your own consciousness, your own understanding, and you tap your tonality, your feel of the whole subject at hand. And you say, oh yes, what would that be? How would I relate, what synonymous term would I relate that to? What category would I relate that to? That sense of the impelling, of bringing something constantly forth, of calling something forth into existence. What is that drive, that push, that impulsion, that acceleration? That's life, huh? So then we see that in each day there will be a sense of, and there was, let there be, and there was. So there's a kind of a factuality, as though nothing can stop that impulsion, nothing can stop that light from shining forth, from coming forth, from expressing itself, from being expressed. Nothing can stop that. It is a fact. It's a fact. And what synonymous term would that, where would I find the real, where is that rooted? In what synonymous term is that rooted? Truth. Truth. Excellent, yes. The factuality of truth, the actuality of it. And finally, in each day, a sense of the fulfillment of that day, and God saw that it was good. Or in the evening and the morning were the first day, or the second day, or the third day, and so it was, and it was good, and it pleased God. That kind of a tonality comes into each and every one of the days. And what synonymous term do you feel there? A love sense, yeah. Yes, fulfilling it. Bringing it to completion, but really fulfillment is the correct term, the fulfillment of love. Isn't that beautiful how every day then is a day of life, truth, and love? Every day. And so we have a kind of what we could call an interdependence going on. Well, isn't this an interesting class to see how this subject is developing itself? It's almost as though we start with the end. Isn't it, huh? We're starting with the end in order to look at the beginning. Yeah. There's an interdependence then of life, truth, and love with mind, the first day of mind, of life, truth, and love with the second day of spirit, of life, truth, and love, the third day of soul. So with each of those days, so that life, truth, and love is impelling the actuality, the factuality, and the fulfillment of mind. Life, truth, and love is impelling the factuality and the fulfillment of spirit. Isn't that beautiful? Life, truth, and love is impelling it. Impelling the actuality of soul and the perfection and fulfillment of soul. And life, truth, and love is impelling the actuality and the fulfillment, the perfection of principle, of life, of truth, and of love. What does this mean to us? It means I'm not responsible for the success of these days. There is a kind of a law of success behind them. The law of life, truth, and love is the law that ensures the success of each one of those 7 days within me, within the situation, within the whole of consciousness, within the whole of mankind's consciousness, of universal consciousness. This true depiction of the spiritual cosmos is impelling itself on the whole universe. Isn't that marvelous? Huh? And so now we can just look and see, what is that first day? What do we mean by light? What do we mean by mind? Well, that light in now the metaphysical symbol, we move from the natural symbol to the metaphysical symbol. What is light? If you think of light, if you think of life, truth, and love impelling light upon your consciousness, what is that? How would you describe that? If you describe it in metaphysical symbols are ideas. So you would have to describe that in an ideational way. What is that light of mind? It's the intelligence of mind, the wisdom of mind, the creative action of mind, the creative power of mind, the illumination of mind, mind leading me with its light, mind informing me, mind telling me what to do, what to say, how to act, how to proceed. So it is the great breaking in of the intelligence and information of the one mind. As though mind were a great principle of information, which it is. It is the information principle of the universe, informing the whole universe. Mrs. Eddy says something to that effect in prose works. I forget where that is, about the wisely leading, informing the universe. And she goes on and talks about mind. It's mind that is informing the whole universe with the intelligence of mind. So we begin to touch that light of mind, or to see in which way it touches us when we feel enlightened about a situation, illumined, where we suddenly feel we can know or we do know what to do, how to act. This is mind breaking in. And we can't make that happen, because being is self-operating. As we've seen, it is divinely cybernetic, so it's self-operating. And so it has that law of life, truth, and love within itself to irresistibly break in on us. It's breaking in on every single consciousness with the light of mind. Think of that. It's going on in every field, in all fields of endeavor, whether we call that field physics or medicine or education or whatever it is. That light is breaking in on consciousness, every plane, every level. So that's the let there be light. But did I mention that there are two aspects to that let there be? There's also a let there be, as though to say to our consciousness, to our conscious approach, let that light break in on you. Let that light be what it is. Let that light rejoice in the perfection and the fulfillment of that light as it comes to you. Isn't that beautiful? You hear now, that's your attitude. That's your approach, which reflects life, truth, and love. It's a reflection of life, truth, and love within you. And so you see on your illustrated material there, over in the far category in the right-hand side, our approach to God, what that looks like. It looks differently with each day or with each synonym in the order. And at the point of mind, it looks like what? Openness of thought. Open your thought to the light of mind. Be willing to learn about the light of mind. Willing to learn, to investigate, to search, to want to know, to desire to know, to be informed. Let yourself be informed. So often we just close right up, we're just closed right up. We don't want to change, don't want to move, don't want to be moved on in the divine flow of life. But life, truth, and love breaks that open within us, breaks us open, in a sense, and opens up our thoughts so that we drop all the preconceptions that would seem to hinder us from conceiving. You see, the preconceptions that would keep us from the conception of the one mind, of conceiving of the light of mind, of taking in the light of mind. That's a beautiful thing, isn't it? So let's look at the second day. And we come to the firmament, really, in the second day. That firmament which did what? It divided the waters above from the waters beneath. In the midst of the waters. Now we have a symbol in the first day, but now when it speaks of the waters, actually it's exegesis in the textbook. These waters are the elements of mind, creative elements within mind, and elements in of the ideas of mind, the knowledge of ideas, which then are further translated as spiritual thoughts, and have the waters. We have those waters of mind. What does it say? And let the firmament order of spirit, the ordering of spirit, you see, of spiritual reality. It does indicated here, although implicate within order is an attitude within us, which will be the attitude to separate between the nature of God, that nature of God, which as the firmament is showing us, as though to say, that light which has broken in on you at the point of mind, and it's the only thing that is real. That which you thought of awareness being another, is not a reality. There's only one reality, and that's the spirit, the one mind. And this onlyness is the real from the unreal. Because immediately you can see, you know, you also understand what is not real. These two go. In order to understand, we have to understand what God is and what God is not. A complementary understanding of reality. See, life, truth, and love is impelling that onlyness to reality upon us. It's impelling its own understanding. That be. Let there be a firmament. Let there be that dividing line within you. Let activity of separating between. That's the let there be a firmament within us. To turn to spirit, to turn from a material concept, to value, greatest value, because it is the only value, the meaning of the firmament of spirit. In the sky, it's not a vault in the vault of heaven. What is below? It's right within us. The firmament is separate opposites. Quality, the innate quality within us, to be able to discern the profundity of that we are able to discern order, to appreciate it, to therefore value it. Therefore, each of you has that within you. I see it whenever I bring information about the further step in the order. I see some confirmation. I see a kind of a joy at the recognition of that mission within us, of that, a joy at that. Coming to soul, I suppose soul can be spoken about at this point. That something within us identifies with the order of being in expression. So we identify with order. It brings a great joy to is that if we have order, that somehow everything is safe. If